I recently went through the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and one passage which struck me there, as I was reading it, that is going to become the basis for this talk. I'll read from that passage a little later. The subject is the perils of wealth, especially for persons aspiring for transcendental realization. Lord Jesus Christ famously said that the love of money is the root of all evil, which is often misphrased as that money is the root of all evil, but it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. Greed, avarice. Now this desire for wealth, from what I've seen in my travels in this lifetime, it's more in some cultures than others. Probably in America it's stronger than anywhere else. And again, not everyone in America. America's really very diverse culturally. But people are all over the world, but in some places more than others, the general tendency is that people who have wealth are considered better, they're higher class. That's actually a symptom of Kali Yuga. Vitam eva kalo nrinam janmachara gunodayaha. Mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, if someone has wealth, he's considered to be a gentleman, high class, well-born, aristocratic, and well-behaved, just because he has money. But again, that is more prominent in certain societies than others. In what we used to call Eastern Europe, less so, because there were communist socialist governments which were prominent there, and there was no possibility for the average person to get very wealthy, nor was there any societal pressure to become wealthy. And so we find that up to the present day, most people, of course, if you go in a big city, if you go in Moscow now or St. Petersburg, where there's a whole new generation of nouveau riche coming up, the new rich. But in general, especially among the older generation, people, they're not much interested in the trappings of wealth. It's very much part of the consumer society, encouraging people to work hard, get money, become rich, and enjoy life in this way. That's also, I was saying in America, America was founded on the basis of Protestantism, and very strongly in the Protestant ethic, especially as it was transmitted in America, the idea that although Jesus himself in the Sermon on the Mount spoke of blessed are the meek, for theirs is the kingdom of God, but somehow or other in Protestantism the idea came up that, well, if you have a lot of money, that's a sign that God's blessing you. And conversely, if you don't, if you're poor, that means you're not good. You're being cursed by God. God doesn't like you. So when I speak about the greed for wealth, getting lots of money, in some cultures it hardly pertains. In other countries, in other cultures, it's very prominent. In India at the present time, it's definitely very prominent. At the present time, ever since I first came here in 1976, it's been there. That would always be there among a certain section of society. In traditional Indian society, for Kshatriyas and Vaishyas to have lots of wealth would be a sign of their being a good Kshatriya or a good Vaishya, successful in what they're doing. Conversely, for Brahmanas, their austerity is the wealth of the Brahmanas, their detachment is, but in modern India, the Brahminical qualities are practically unknown, and there's a great thirst for wealth, and we find even among practicing Vaishnavas in India or of Indian extract, there's a subcurrent or maybe a major current of desire for wealth, or the idea that if you have wealth, it makes the misconception that if you have lots of money, then your life is better. Your life will be significantly better depending on how much money you have. We find in Bhagavad Gita also the well-known statement of Lord Krishna, Bhoga Ishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Parhita Chetasam Vyavasayatmiko Buddhya Samadhana Vidhiyate. For persons who are attached to bhoga, material enjoyment, and Aishvarya, opulence, wealth, the clear intelligence by which one can endeavor for spiritual life becomes covered, one's consciousness becomes polluted by the desire for material enjoyment and wealth, which go together. And as a result, such persons cannot achieve, there's no question of them attaining transcendental realization. As I was saying, in some places more than others, but basically the whole world is propelled by material desire, and when that intensifies, the karma desire transforms into krodha, anger, and lobha, greed. So to greater or lesser degrees, everyone in material existence is enamored by the desire for sensual enjoyment, especially sexual enjoyment, and wealth, kanaka kamini. These are well-known terms among spiritualists in India. The Kanaka means gold, and Kamini means woman, and especially women as perceived of in a lusty way, or women who specifically by their deportment and everything else about them incite desires for lust. And then Kanaka Kamini, Pratishta, Jamini, and then the desire for prestige, all these things go along with it. So everyone's interested in sense enjoyment and wealth, or at least living comfortably. And then when that becomes very intense, those desires, when those desires become heightened, then one becomes demoniac. And we have the name, well, we don't have. Hiranyakashipu had the name Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyam is another word for gold, and Kashipu means bed, with the idea of bed as a place for material enjoyment. Gold bed. If you have a gold bed, then the idea is that you got lots of money, because you don't need gold for a bed. Actually, you don't need gold for anything. But most people, if they have a bed at all, then they have a wooden bed, or maybe nowadays it's made out of something plastic, something like that, or a metal bed. But to have a gold bed means you've really made it, and you can entice the most sensual women to enjoy with you in that bed. So that's the idea. Ardyo Bijanavanasmi Konyosti Sadrisho Maya. Oh, the demon thinks, I have so much wealth. Who is better than me? Who is comparable to me? So people, they tend to judge themselves and others in terms of wealth. And of course this breeds envy, when others have more than you, or if others are trying to take away what you've already got. Now, any person with even a slight glimmer of higher values, spiritual values, they are searching for the higher goals of life, they can understand that the desire for wealth it spoils one's character. It's a complete blockage for spiritual realization. And therefore we find that traditionally sadhus here in India, or monks and nuns in the Christian tradition, they take a vow of chastity and poverty. So then Kanaka, Kamini, that Kanaka, desire for wealth, gold, and then just the opposite, a vow of poverty and chastity, that one will not, monks and nuns, they don't mix up with each other, and sadhus, and sadhvis, female sadhus, actually the term sadhvi refers to a chaste married woman. Generally traditionally it's ascribed to them. So they're reserved and disciplined in their sexual activity. If sadhu may, a grihastha, married person may also be a sadhu, but it means they are very controlled. They observe brahmacharya. A brahmacharya means either they are totally celibate or they engage in sexual activity legitimately within marriage for the purpose of procreation of children. Even the hippies who first appeared within Western society in the 1970s, they understood, or a major focus of the hippie movement, or a cause for it, was a reaction against the gross materialism of their parents and their whole parents' generation. They didn't get the part about sex right. Now, the hippies, there was a spiritual, or at least a quasi-spiritual search there. But they didn't get the part about sex right. They got it completely wrong. That instead of being disciplined in sex, they equated sex with some kind of spiritual, some imaginary spiritual ideas. But the idea that we shouldn't covet wealth, we should be happy to live in poverty and live in nature. Of course, there are head shops which sold things for hippies, and they also needed some money. But they also set up communes, and they tried to live very simply in harmony with nature. I recently got an email just a few days ago from a lady devotee who was raised by hippie parents in Britain. This would have been, I guess, in the 70s and 80s, and how she and her siblings would go to school with no shoes on, which was tough because the other kids at school would laugh at them. And no shoes, but by choice, no shoes. Means their parents' choice. And they were taught not to say the words me, mine, and my. The idea that we're all living together and we all share everything. Don't covet anything. So there was a spiritual search of sorts, and they understood that the pursuit of wealth and the spiritual path, they're two different paths, and they don't go very well together. Now, we do, of course, see in religions that they can be very wealthy religious institutions. The Roman Catholic Church is reputed to be fabulously wealthy, and there are also big temples here in India and beautiful large mosques in different parts of the world. So wealth in and of itself isn't bad. If you go to Rome and you can visit the Vatican and tremendous wealth was employed to make outstandingly beautiful structures and paintings for the glorification of God. So it's not that wealth in and of itself is bad, but it's the love of wealth or the contaminating influence that can have. In Gauriya Vaishnavism is the understanding of yukta vairagya, applied or practical detachment from this world. Anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayunjataha nirbandhe krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. That one should not be attached to anything of this world, but should be attached to Krishna. And one who has this mentality, they can employ everything of this world in Krishna's service. That means if someone is not attached to wealth or anything else, he can live in wealth and utilize that wealth to serve Krishna. So wealth can be, it's not inherently bad, but this principle of yukta vairagya can be misapplied or misrepresented. For instance, we hear within Vaishnava society there is quite widespread the idea that your career is your devotional service, which can be, if one is wholly and solely thinking how to serve Krishna, and one is in the job market, and one has an ongoing career or business or whatever, then he can, within that position, can serve Krishna. But generally, people pursue careers with the idea of getting ahead and showing oneself to be better than others. So that association and that influence and the desire for wealth, it's not automatically that one becomes freed from the contamination of that if one is performing devotional service. In this regard, we should consider that people are pursuing careers to see if they can get ahead, means make more money. The more, the better. So this kind of thinking, it can be dovetailed in Krishna's service. But in general, the association of such people and that, it's contaminating, and the idea that, well, you have to get money to serve Krishna, and the more the better, and the more the better means in a career you have to shove others out of the way, and office politics, put yourself up, put others down, fawning at the feet of those who are above you while thinking how to pull them down and put yourself up in that position. On the whole atmosphere in competitive career struggle, based on getting more and more wealth, it's not conducive for advancement in devotional service. However, within Vaishnava society, there is in certain quarters the idea that, well, if you have more money, you're a better devotee, somehow or other, which doesn't tally with any of the teachings of scripture or with common sense or with reality. In this regard, it's pertinent to remember I was reading the 11th canto of Bhagavatam. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a section describing the Avanti Brahmana. The Avanti Brahmana, we say. Of them, there were and are so many Avanti Brahmanas. Avanti is an area in central India. So the story, as recounted by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavatam, it's recorded, is that there was a Brahmana by caste who, unlike an actual Brahmana, was very interested in amassing wealth, and he was very successful at it, and he was very mean and cruel and miserly, and eventually everyone, including even his own family members, came to hate him because he had no love for them. He only loved money. And eventually, by the force of his fate, he gradually lost everything and became poverty-stricken, and no one loved him, no one cared for him, and he was in a very distraught condition. But at that time, due to some previous piety, there arose within his heart a spirit of detachment and renunciation. And he said the following, commenting about the influence of the desire for wealth on a person's mentality and on a person's character. I'll read the English translations. This is from Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 23. The English translations by followers of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Reading from verse 15. Generally, the wealth of misers never allows them any happiness. In this life, it causes their self-torment, and when they die, it sends them to hell. So it's self-evident that a person, his only love is for money, but he torments himself because he's always in anxiety. Where is my money? I want to keep my money. No one should take my money. They never have any actual happiness. Whatever pure fame is possessed by the famous, and whatever praiseworthy qualities are found in the virtuous are destroyed by even a small amount of greed, just as one's attractive physical beauty is ruined by a trace of white leprosy. In the earning, attainment, increase, protection, expense, loss, and enjoyment of wealth, all men experience great labor, fear, anxiety, and delusion. These are all exactly the opposite of the symptoms that we expect in a person who's making spiritual advancement. Great labor, well, that may be there, great labor for advancement in spiritual life, but it's not fear and anxiety. Fear, anxiety, and delusion are not the symptoms of one who's advancing in spiritual consciousness, and therefore we can see that intrinsically the desire for wealth runs opposite to the desire for becoming spiritually advanced. Now, the Avanti Brahmana describes 15 undesirable qualities that contaminate men because of greed for wealth. Here they are: theft, violence, speaking lies, duplicity, lust, anger, perplexity, pride, quarreling, enmity, faithlessness, envy, and the dangers caused by women, gambling, and intoxication. Although these qualities are undesirable, men falsely ascribe value to them. One desiring to achieve the real benefit of life should therefore remain aloof from undesirable material wealth. Even a man's brothers, wife, parents, and friends united with him in love will immediately break off their affectionate relationships and become enemies over a single coin. And this is a description of the world, actually. You can see in history how true this is. In history, even up to the present day. For even a small amount of money, these relatives and friends become very agitated and their anger is inflamed. Acting as rivals, they quickly give up all sentiments of goodwill and will reject one at a moment's notice, even to the point of committing murder. Those who obtain human life, which is prayed for even by the demigods, and in that human birth become situated as first-class brahmanas, are extremely fortunate, If they disregard this important opportunity, they are certainly killing their own self-interest and thus achieve a most unfortunate end. This Avanti Brahmana is seeing his own condition. He was born in a Brahmana family, but instead, due to greed for wealth, he acted against his own self-interest. Then, what mortal man, having achieved this human life, which is the very gateway to both heaven and liberation, would willingly become attached to that abode of worthlessness, material property? This is, of course, completely opposite to the way of the materialistic way of thinking. One who fails to distribute his wealth to the proper shareholders, the demigods, sages, forefathers, and ordinary living entities, as well as his immediate relatives, in-laws, and own self, is maintaining his wealth simply like a yaksha and will fall down. So in other words, if one has wealth, you're supposed to distribute it and share it and utilize it for the benefit of others, not just keep it for yourself. Discriminating persons are able to utilize their money, youth, and strength to achieve perfection, but I have feverishly squandered these in the useless endeavor for further wealth. Now that I am an old man, what can I achieve? Why must an intelligent man suffer by his constant vain efforts to get wealth? Indeed, this whole world is most bewildered by someone's illusory potency. For one who is in the grips of death, what is the use of wealth, or those who offer it, sense gratification, or those who offer it, or for that matter any type of fruitive activity which simply causes one to again take birth in the material world? So we can understand the example. Someone's dying, they only have a few days to live. Clearly they're dying, and what good will it be if someone offers you wealth? But then we consider we're all on the path of death. We're all going to die very soon. If you see a baby is born and someone comes and says, oh, this baby will die very soon, and say, what are you saying? You're cursing them. No, I'm not cursing, just speaking a fact. No, he's just born. Yeah, he's probably going to live 80 years. He's going to die soon. Everything's soon. We're all on the path of death. So what is the point of amassing wealth? As is commonly said, we come into this world empty-handed. We can't take anything with us where we go. So why do we endeavor so much to get things, thinking that it is mine in the interim? It makes no sense. Then I'll just read one more verse in which the Avanti Brahmana, talking about his own condition of having been rich, miserly, and miserable, lost everything, he concludes that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Hari, who contains within himself all the demigods, must be satisfied with me. Indeed, he has brought me to this suffering condition and forced me to experience detachment, which is the boat to carry me over this ocean of material life. So this is intelligence to understand this, that wealth is temporary. Attachment to wealth destroys all one's good qualities. It diverts one's mind away from the real goal of life. And therefore, one who is spiritually advanced should, or on the path of spiritual advancement, if he's an official renunciant, he gives up the desire for amassing wealth for personal gain. And Yadricha labha santushtaha. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that what one gets, one should, in family life also some money is needed, some wealth is needed, but what one gets, one should be satisfied with, not endeavoring greatly to get it. So it's good to read from time to time. about the story of the Avanti Brahmana, we can see that although people in general think, oh, it's very good luck, good fate, if you have plenty of money, but ultimately the Avanti Brahmana said, oh, good luck, it was good for me, very good. I had wealth and I lost it. So it's the opposite of conventional thinking. And people in this world, they generally desire to be wealthy, but a devotee thinks better not be. You may say, well, I can get lots of money and use it for Krishna's service. Yeah, maybe. But if you get lots of money and use it for Krishna's service, then you're not wealthy anymore. We can visit those who are dhana durmadandha and request them to donate for this and that. We don't ourselves have to become wealthy. Kasmad bhajanti kavayo dhana durmadandhan. Shukadev Goswami says that why should we be concerned about wealth? Taravo king na jivanti. Do the trees not live? Do the rivers not give water? Do the trees not give fruit? What is the need for someone who's spiritually advanced and knowledgeable? Why should he flatter people who are blinded, maddened by the desire for wealth? This is Bhagavatam. This is what Shukadev Goswami teaches us. He also teaches us about great kings like Ambarish Maharaj, who as a king was no doubt very wealthy, but who engaged everything in the service of Krishna. Overall, the desire for wealth will seriously impede one's spiritual advancement. It's not necessarily that someone who has wealth is not eligible for spiritual advancement. We just mentioned the name of Ambarish Maharaj, mentioned in the Bhagavatam. And interestingly, Srila Prabhupada gave to a disciple of his who was from a very wealthy background, he gave him the name Ambarisha Das. So it's not that material wealth in and of itself blocks spiritual advancement, but the desire to accumulate wealth, it impedes one's spiritual advancement. And even for transcendentalists who may collect money for building temples and printing books about Krishna, but Srila Prabhupada, he always recommended, don't keep money. If in a temple or a spiritual organization, don't keep money. Then people will fight over it. Someone will try to take it away. Immediately if you get money, build a temple, print books, distribute prasadam, hold festivals. Don't keep money in the name of Krishna consciousness or spiritual advancement. Then the spiritualist, he becomes like a materialist. He can be. And all the headaches of administering funds and this and that. Use it all for Krishna, without delay. Dinere adhik daya kare Bhagavan, kulin pandit dhani, bara abhiman. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that those who are very lowly in the estimation of human society, they are dear to Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, and persons who are enamored by their high birth, their high education, and their wealth, they're away from God. Now, it may be that a poor man is full of pride and a wealthy man is humble and godly and God-conscious. But the general tendency is that when one is downtrodden in human society, humility comes to him much more easily than if one is being respected by others for being very rich and so on. Another famous saying of Lord Jesus is that it is easier for camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. Now, that's all. A camel to go through the eye of a needle, well, we don't see camels going through the eye of a needle. A camel is a big animal, and the eye of a needle is a very small thing. Although we do find Narad Muni relating how Lord Vishnu was putting an elephant through the eye of a needle. But apparently this was some kind of mistranslation, that the eye of a needle, it refers to a small space which is possible for a camel to go through, but not very easily. So if you take it that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to go to heaven, if you take it literally, then it's impossible for a rich man to go to heaven. But it's not expected and not easy. And we find Jesus also in the atmosphere he was preaching in Palestine at that time. There was a lot of, obviously there was a lot of greed and avarice and desire for wealth and misuse of wealth in the name of religion. And Jesus spoke a lot about that and against it. So but it's not that wealth in and of itself destroys spiritual advancement, but the tendency is there. In Kali Yuga, all bad qualities reside in gold. Very dangerous. Because money can be misused, and the tendency to misuse it is very strong in Kali Yuga especially. So if one is an advanced devotee, he can use everything in Krishna service. Kanaka Kamini, gold, beautiful women. How many sannyasis can be around beautiful women all the time and engage them, be totally detached and simply engage them in Krishna service? It's not an easy thing to do. And sannyasis, the very ethos of the sannyas ashram is that they should not be with women in direct contact. They should always be thinking of women, of the gopis of Vrindavan, the spiritual women, but they're not supposed to mix with women, either, even if they are very spiritually advanced and they're not affected, still, because the tendency of one who is not completely pure is to be affected by the association of wealth and women, then sannyasis should be, they should not be seen doing that, lest that be misunderstood. These are general guidelines. Unless one is very advanced, he cannot, so to speak, digest wealth in his consciousness. There is an anecdote of Jagannath Das Babaji, who was given a rupee by a rich man. In those days, a rupee was a silver rupee, and if you say a rupee nowadays, 1 rupee has no value. Maybe you can buy something with it. I don't think you can even buy a box of matches for a rupee now. But maybe there's something you can still buy for a rupee. Beggars won't even take 1 rupee, it's so little. But in those days, there was a lot of money. So his servant took that money, his assistant, and they walked on for some miles away from that place. And then after some time, Jagannath Das Babaji told his servant, Bihari Das Babaji, well, take me back, because Jagannath Das was very old and Bihari was young and strong, and Bihari would carry Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj in a basket on his head. So he told him, take me back, let's go walk. They'd already gone several miles. Let's go back to the place where that rich man was there. So he came back to the house of the rich man and said, you please take this 1 rupee back. It's hard for me to carry with me. It's hard for me to take, to be with me. And I don't know how you can have hundreds and thousands of rupees when even 1 rupee it's as if biting me. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj is totally detached from everything material, but he's giving that lesson to all of us. So in general, we should understand, as aspiring individualists. From the very beginning, anyone desirous of spiritual advancement must give up this insane desire for wealth, knowing it to be the cause of bewilderment, suffering, and degradation. And genuine spiritual teachers will not tell others, yes, get lots of money and be spiritually advanced. Why tell them that? The real thing is to be spiritually advanced. Why say to have lots of money? Why encourage that? When it's putting shackles. It's like putting a handicap or putting some extra, telling people to run a race and putting some extra weights around their ankles. Why do that? Genuine spiritual teachers will never encourage such a desire. Of course, if someone is very materialistic, you may say, yes. You be materialistic, but chant Hare Krishna. But for persons who are taking a genuine interest in spiritual life and who can understand the not very difficult to understand principle that the desire for anything material is going to block our spiritual advancement, it's ABC spiritual knowledge, then why would a genuine spiritual teacher encourage that? Reading from the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Text 15. The words of Rishabdev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He says, if one puts into the bondage of karmic activity his disciple, son, or citizen in the case of a king, who is bereft of transcendental vision. In other words, someone comes to one as a disciple, or one is supposed to be giving spiritual guidance, and the person comes, he doesn't have transcendental knowledge, he doesn't have transcendental vision. You, the spiritual guide or guru, are supposed to be giving that. But if instead you put them into the bondage of fruitive activity, how will one profit? What will be the gain for you or for the person you give that wrong guidance? It is like leading a blind man to a dark well and causing him to fall in. What a nasty thing to do. There's a blind man, you take him by the hand and say, come with me, he trusts you, you take him to a well and throw him in. So Rishabdev says that if people come to you for spiritual guidance and they trust you and you say, you engage them in fruitive activity. Oh yes, make lots of money. Chant Hare Krishna, make lots of money, have a good career. You're engaging them on the mundane platform and telling them it's the spiritual platform. You can tell them that anyway you have to do a job in this world, but you do it and chant Hare Krishna, but the idea that you have to get ahead, be top of your class in study, make lots of money, and this is your devotional service. It's not the teaching of Shastra. It's not conducive to people's spiritual life. It's not conducive to the spirit of detachment from this world, which is required if one is to make advancement, actually. Bhakti Pareshanubhava Viraktiranyatra, simple definition of bhakti, devotional service to Lord Krishna, is given in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam again, that bhakti means to experience, to have feeling for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and naturally to be detached from everything else. It's a simple thing to understand. Somehow or other, Maya is very strong. We should come out of that Maya and know that Dhanvar Nityananda, Patimar Gaurachandra. My real wealth is Nityananda. My master, my Lord of my life is Gaurachandra. Premadana Bina Beta Daridra Jivan. Then Dasa kare more beton deha premadhan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in teaching the Nadhanam, Najanam, Nasundarim verse says that without the real wealth, which is love of Krishna, then our miserable life becomes completely useless. So making me your service, making me your servant, give me the wages, give this payment, the premadhan, the wealth of love of Krishna. This should be our desire. Nadhanam, Najanam, Nasundarim. We pray following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I don't desire wealth. We pray like that, very nicely, very sweetly, singing in a very nice tune, and then someone comes and says, yes, you should have wealth. It's good to have wealth, and it's contradictory. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. O Krishna, O husband of the goddess of fortune, O goddess of fortune, please engage me in your service. We do not pray that I want Krishna, the husband of the goddess of fortune, to give me wealth. No, not like that. That's the opposite. Hare Krishna. Dante nidhaya turnakang padaya nepatya kritva chaka kushatam etad aham bravimi hey sadhava sakala eva vihaya duraj chaitanya chandra charne gurutanuraga vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhurvyavcha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.